All right. Okay. So just a little bit about Stowy Camp and our programs as we get going. We have one-on-one coaching sessions. We also have a parenting program called Stowy Champions Parenting Program. It's a group coaching session, a 12-week journey. We're now currently on week 3 or week 4. We meet every Thursday. So we are taking up this space, and a lot of the champions who are in the class really are here today. We also have outreach engagements to schools, to corporates, to chamas, to villages. So if you would like Stowy to come and speak to your group, you reach out to us. We also have a certification program for people who work with children. We call them Stowy captains. So we train school staff, we train people who work with children, and anyone who is in this space. Then Candid conversation, which is what we have here today. And then one of our also key programs is Stowy Camp for Kids. And we are really venturing into different specialized communities. We are having conversations with the golfing community right now, communities in the aviation field. Anyone with children specializing in different spaces, you can also invite us in. One of the things we realize is that young athletes, chess, these talented children also really have they tend to be a lot more reactive and harder to manage their emotions just because of the pressure that they experience, not because of anything else. But the highly gifted children also tend to also struggle quite a bit with managing emotions and can get quite reactive. And so we are really getting into a space where we're supporting children in those spaces as well as their parents. So our camps are getting more and more specialized, but we also can come to your school to run a camp in the estates, and we also have Stowy clubs in the schools. So I want us to, as we keep going, I would like us to do an exercise. First of all, we are here because we want to learn about how to nurture our children. Okay, kindly mute. Nurture self-motivation, nurture motivation in our children. But we need to define the what. And I'm sure the panelists I have here are also curious to know what it is. They already know because they work already on the field, but we want to know, for those of us who are here, how does lack of motivation look like for your children? So we want to be very specific. Please take down that, go to menti.com, and also I'm going to ask the team to put the link in the chat there. How does lack of motivation look like for your children? So let's be specific. I would like my child to be self-motivated in this area. So let's go. Let's see what it is. So is it in the chat, the Menti, the chat, the link? Because I would like to shift to that site. So go to menti.com. Use the code 47976806 and start answering that question. How does lack of motivation look like for your children? How does lack of motivation look like for your children? There, thank you. We've already put it in the chat. Thank you, Naomi. All right, so let me stop sharing that and let's go to your answers. The responses are already coming. Allow me to share. Okay, there are those of us who are putting our answers in the chat. That's still okay. However, I would really like to encourage us to put it in. There we go. Then I share. And to see All right, 22 responses so far. All right, so let's see. And you know, we're going to be sharing the recording, the YouTube link. And as we do that, if you registered, we will also send you these responses, okay? Being active, self-study, being responsive, schoolwork, personal discipline, waking up, tidying up after playing, not completing schoolwork, doing homework, obedience, self-motivated in obedience, in responsibility, in completing tasks, I believe, respect, self-motivation in respect, defining their dreams, okay, defining her dreams, tidying up, I've said that, homework and refusing to get off the internet, not taking initiative, cleaning the room, all right? Be able, that one I hear you totally, I'm in that space. Be able to do simple house chores, okay? Remembering their assignments without prompting, communication, setting goals and following through, okay? Like they shouldn't be prompted to remember their assignments. That would make our lives so much easier. Self-study, spiritual, to have a relationship with God, motivated in school. My goodness, we have 60 responses. I may not be able to answer, to read them all out. However, I would really like to just scroll so that you can see. Let us see the things that we are struggling with, studying, making genuine friends, homework, performance, sporting activities, conversing, social gatherings, not shy, you know, taking initiative, homework, consistent, even when there are no cuts or exam, you just study, okay, creative activities, chores, lack of initiative, interacting with their age mates, the child keeps to themselves, they are moody, they've dropped in performance, they say they dislike school, okay, expressive at dinner table, academic, spiritual matters, self-hygiene, and it goes on and on, 67 responses so far, social media addiction, self-drive, ambitious, caring, sharing, responsible in life, not succumbing to peer pressure, discovering themselves and staying in their course. Thank you so much all. So far we have 43 of you who have responded. These are the things that you would like your child to be more self-motivated, okay? The reason, again, I loved to put this and to broadcast it up so that we can all see and so that we can all realize that our issues are very similar. We tend sometimes to get to a place of self-isolation, thinking you're the only one going through this. So this just helps, not so that we can say misery loves company, but just so that it gives us a sense of community to know that, look, we actually can be able to come together and work together to support our children. And so, like I was saying earlier, is that when I work with parents and I see any issue that's coming up over and over, that's what I bring to the Candid conversation, so that we are able to put our hearts and heads together. You know, at STAWI, we are about thriving families and connected communities, just really normalizing. We're trying to normalize these conversations because it really does take a village to raise a child. So thank you all. We will definitely share this conversation with you on email as we continue. Let me see if this, I'll be able to get back now so that I can introduce our amazing guests today. There we go. All right, so thank you all for sharing. I know there's something here in the chat. Yes, that was already done earlier. Bored and easily provoked. Okay, a bit about myself. My name is Dr. Carol, and for those who are meeting me for the first time, a very brief intro. I'm the CEO of STAWI Camp for Wellbeing. And what we do at STAWI, I am a mom, first of all, a psychologist and a parent coach. What we do at STAWI Camp is what we call psychoeducation. So I'm using my psychology background and my education background to be able to curate programs and to create platforms where caring adults will be able to be equipped, okay, to create spaces for all kinds of children to thrive. So at the end of the day, that's what we are looking for, to just support children to thrive. All right. My first guest, Susie Wangare. Okay.
I run a mentoring, and I run a program, a mentoring program for teenagers that is called the Leading Teenager. The reason why I do this at the core of my purpose is teenagers, is because for me, they are our next generation. And because they are our future, I believe that when we instill the values that we instill in them now, when we help them develop their character, it will only be for our benefit, not just their benefit. So it's really something that I'm passionate about. I do mini programs as well where it comes to young people. And I'm just excited to be here. I've known Dr. Carol for many years. So I'm really excited to be able to be part of this conversation, not just to share what I know and what my experience has taught me, but to also hear and learn from the community. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Susie. That is quite extensive and amazing to hear. So I believe Dr. Carol has joined us again.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry, people. Yeah. I'm actually trying, I'm using my phone now, but I'm trying to get in I'm trying to hotspot, but it looks like you people are continuing. What was going on? Just keep doing it as I try to hotspot.
Okay, so thank you very much, Susie, for introducing yourself to us.
We have a blackout.
Sorry for that. Yeah, so John Willis. I'm looking.
Thank you.
There you are.
Yeah, thank you. My name is John Wills Njoroge, and working with young people and also supporting institutions. So this journey of working with young people started a while back. As a teenager, I was part of leadership in a community somewhere, and growing up, going to high school, going to university, and creating opportunities for young people. The motivation was mainly what we were going through, and most of the time you will hear teenagers say that they can't be heard or even understood. And so my process and journey is mainly to create understanding, especially linking one generation and another generation, and mainly focusing on reconciliation. Mainly, we have fathers and their sons, and our mentorship program for the boys is Brave Hearts leadership program. And for Brave Hearts, what we believe in is that every young man deserves a voice to call him out, and he deserves a community to belong. And so in this process, we encourage them to join hands together and grow together. The other thing that I do is supporting institutions, SMEs, and connecting the relationship between what happens at home and how that affects the markets. And so mainly creating room for parents to prosper at work and at the same time flourish at home, because we have some of the things that young people are dealing with that can be stressful to parents, as we have highlighted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John Wills. Apologies, I mispronounced your name. So yes, so thank you very much for introducing yourself to us as a mother to a preteen boy. That is very amazing to hear. So I'm not sure whether Dr. Carol, you're set up now, or we give you a few more minutes. You're muted? Not yet. You're muted. We can't hear you though.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. I'm saying, let's continue with the conversation. Look, KPLC have really done me a number today. But yeah, thank you all. Thank you so much, Cisco, for taking it up. I know that it was introduction. We were doing introductions, right? And I just also wanted to say that I've known John Wills and I've known Susie in various capacities over the years, with John Wills as a mentor to boys and as a mother to a son. There's a lot that I glean from his wisdom, the posts, the conversations that we have. And he's on my speed dial for any boy mentorship space. I send them to him, and I'm really, really grateful that you said yes to this conversation. With Susie, I've known her for many, many years, and as a teen mentor, I enjoy just having conversations with her about how she handles teens. She has a very firm and kind. She really balances, integrates those together, and really has great outcomes with children and with teenagers, both here and in the UK. So again, welcome, Susie. Susie's Stima is back, you people. Susie is also mentoring my son. She's my son's mentor, and sometimes they have conversations that, I thought I'm close to my son, but they have conversations that that I didn't know that he could have with someone else. So I'm so grateful. I usually tell her that I'm happy that she's part of my parenting village as well. So welcome again, John Wills and Susie. And I just want us to dig right in. You saw the conversations there. You saw the conversations on Menti. What are the issues that we are experiencing? And I would just like us to start. I don't know if you said why you do what you do, but can we start there? Why you do what we do? Can we start with you, Susie, as now I set up? Electricity has come back.
Yeah, thank you. I had just said a bit of my why, but really for me, one of the things that I have seen is that from a very young age, I knew that I didn't want to work in, with machines or anything like that. I wanted to work with people. And then over time, I realized that I really have a heart for teenagers specifically. And when I dug a bit deeper and I spoke to a few people, including my mom, I realized it's really because at the core of teenagers is a heart that is willing to be guided, a heart that is willing to challenge the status quo, a heart that is young and willing and courageous, bold, and really young people, teenagers, they want to know, they have energy, they have a lot going for them. And because of those qualities, sometimes we are or when I was younger, I felt maybe a bit more misunderstood, or sometimes young people feel like, people think that they're out to do not much good. So for me, it isn't that. It's the fact that I realized that the minute you train them, the minute you hear them, the minute you channel that energy, that boldness, that courage into the specific places that they need to go, then amazing things happen. So I went and did education as a B.Ed, and I've been a teacher ever since, and I've seen over and over again results that prove to me that what I thought is actually right. So that's why I do what I do.
Thank you. A lot of passion there. And I think all of us have stories about our own experiences and how those things inspired us to do what it is we are doing in the work that we do. John, tell us a little bit about the why.
My why I actually attributed to people who have influenced me, and that begins when I was in high school. I think I would say when parents bring their sons, I always tell them, you're not coming to meet someone who is perfect. but someone who is who can journey and who will journey with your sons. And it's because I think at a young age I was quite influential as a teenager, and I realized that people were listening to what I was saying and all that, which was exciting. But now when I went to high school, had a conversation with some students, and the whole school went home. Now, it was termed as a strike, but it was not a strike. And so when the principal called me, he said, "You're my son and I can't expel you. I just want to know how you convinced this number of students to leave the school." And so with that, I realized that his approach was compassion. And it's something that I really desired in life, that compassionate approach. And so left the high school. After high school, I met another man who has worked with me for about 17 years now. And the two men, one of the things they said is that as you go out, do the same to others. And so my motivation, my why is if we can create that ripple effect, where one man works with a son, his own son, or in the neighborhood, we will transform our society. And so that's what I would say. That is my why. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I like how you said that you just had a conversation, then people went home. Yeah, but I think the story behind that is the compassion that someone, an adult in your space, had, and a willingness to really see beyond the exterior. And that's what we see. And even as we are talking about the issue with motivation, it's still the same narrative. What we see is 10%. So this conversation is really about unpacking a bit of it. We may not be able to go over everything, but a bit of what is that? What's going on with this issue of motivation? And we have this issue of lack of motivation. And we've already, broadcast the Menti results. So I'm sure at the top of your heads, you can already remember what it is that our participants talked about. But more than anything, I also would just like you to, okay. Oh no. All right. Have we been attacked or what is going on? All right.
No, I think it's someone who clicked on whiteboards.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually quite sensitive to these things. So, all right. Okay. So what I was saying is, how does lack of motivation play out for the children that come to your space? What are some of the things? We already saw what the parents wrote and what these caregivers wrote. But how does it show up with the children that you're working with? Let me start with you, Susie.
I think for me, in terms of just dealing with groups of young people, one of the biggest things that is there is misbehavior. So they will behave in a way that shows a lack of interest. So they will, it can range from extreme behavior or just disruptive behavior, or what we call low-level disruption. The child is chatty in a lesson. The child is asking questions that have nothing to do with the lesson. So they try to disrupt, or they look like they're disruptive, but it's not because they want to be, it's because they are masking something. The other way that I see a lot of is I think what I can say, not bothered. So, I'll say to a child or a young person, why is it that you haven't come in on time? That's just, and they say, well, miss, I just can't be bothered. So I'm like, what do you mean you can't be bothered? And then you realize they're just not motivated. They're not motivated to come to school. They feel that it's not the place for them, but in their language is that they'll say, I'm not bothered. And the third most common one that I see is it's almost an indifference. So they're indifferent to what is happening within life. So this is not just in school. I'm referencing school because that's where I spend most of my time. But I also see it with my mentees. They are a bit indifferent and they seem to not be quite sure. They look like they're disinterested in things because they are either unsure of what they want to do, or they're struggling with something. So they'll say, well, I'm not interested in this. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care whether I do it or I pass or I don't. I don't care whether or not people recognize me. And it's the language I'm using is the language they use. And the reason I'm saying that and giving that raw example is because of the fact that that's how they speak, that's who they are, and that's their age, and that's how they can express themselves. So those are the three most common ones. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And, in misbehavior, indifference, acting out, and we never really get to even think that for the most part, we don't see misbehavior as lack of motivation. We see misbehavior as just bad manners, just children just deciding they're just being children. But underlying that is lack of motivation. And I know, of course, because of the space you're in, as your teacher, they can in your face tell you, I'm not motivated. Children will tell that to some of the children will be able to tell that to their parents as well. But in most cases, even if they are not able to tell you, I'm not motivated, it still comes out in form of misbehavior. So maybe ground us a little bit, John, and tell us, hapa kwa ground, how does it show up?
I think one, I would allow me to start by saying that when we're giving our observations and our analysis, we don't blame any parent. So because we're journeying together. And so one of the things I would point out is sick days. So they will come and say, I am sick. And then you ask where? Somewhere, or they just come up with something. And I remember as a preteen, there's a time I went home and I told my dad, I'm having a headache and a stomachache at the same time, and they are quite intense. So he asked me, and then how are you able to speak? So he told me, just go back to school. And and I didn't know what to tell him next. So there's that, and then there's drop in performance. Depending on school, it can also be, let's say, a soccer team or even a club like chess and all that. And they also become impatient. And the other thing that I have seen is dishonest. So they will lie about something, and you know for sure that this child is lying. And then when you tell them that they are lying, they become aggressive. So those are some of the signs that we can see with our children. And then there's also a bit of conflict with their teachers. So you can get a call from the school that the child is not concentrating. And so you find there's heightened conflict in school with the teachers or even with the other students. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, what we are seeing is misbehavior. And I like to put that in quotes because it shows up as misbehavior, but there is a lack of motivation there. So why are children not motivated? I mean, these children have pretty much way more than we had when we were growing up. What is it? They should be motivated. They should be happy that they have all these things in their space. And, they should just be like, grateful that we are providing all this. So your thoughts, where is there such a lack of motivation? Let's start with you, John.
I would say these things are present and human connection is low. And so the aspect of connecting with their peers and also connecting with the adults, that one is low. Why is it so? Because yes, these things are present, and sometimes the interpretation of the presence of these things is that they can satisfy the vacuum that they have. And some of these, I would say, there's competition in school. And with the competition in school, they're not able to connect with their peers. And then when they come at home, connection is not as much because there are all sorts of factors. Because like now parents, they have to work extra hard to make sure that children are in school. And so working hours are not allowing the parents to be home early. And then also our neighborhoods, because it's not the way we grew up. So today, allowing your child to get out of your compound, it is risky for the parent. And so you're calculating how safe is my child before they get out. And sometimes our neighborhoods, we don't even know our neighbors. And so with that, there's a level of loneliness that these children have. And so I would say as a result of that, they can experience loss of motivation because motivation would take a collective measure for us to keep it alive. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, so you are saying an underlying factor there, a need for connection.
True.
Are you saying if there was more connection, there was more intentional connection, it sort of breeds more motivation? It funds the motivation?
Yes, it would. That would be the case. And allow me to give an example. There's an institution that we worked with, and it was about grades, what students are scoring and all that. And we did an evaluation, and with that we realized that these students needed to spend more time together. And in class, they were not doing that. And so the school changed the program, increased time for their games, and also debates and other activities. And with that, it was a very simple adjustment that changed discipline, that changed the atmosphere in school, and in discipline cases reduced. And why did this happen? Because like now for the sports, they encourage teachers to be part of that. And so 3:30, they didn't allow any student to be in class. Students and teachers, they were in the field playing, and they were able to have conversations that you cannot have in a classroom. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, that should be a case study. That should be a case study that needs to spread out into different spaces, because I feel like we've got it all wrong. You know, we've just totally got it all wrong. And I know that you also work in the social justice space and all that. And I hope that there's a lot of connection between just, you know, lack of equality and lack of motivation, but just to hear that the low-lying fruits were able to increase the motivation, that for me just warms my heart, because it just speaks my language. Susie, why?
I totally agree with what John Wills has said. And to pick up a bit on his last point, is what we've noticed is sometimes we put a lot of value, we overvalue academic things over what we call extracurricular activities. But actually, we should be looking at it as we want to develop the whole child. And that means cognitively, but also socially and in other ways. So I think I totally agree with that, because the minute you start balancing between everything, then you're creating a young person, or you're helping the young person to really come out of themselves and be proud of something. Because one of the reasons why they're not motivated is because they don't have high self-esteem. And why is that? Sometimes is because, you know, you'll say, oh, well done, your grades were fantastic. Okay, what if I'm not getting the grades then? Does it mean I'm not good enough? So if I'm not getting the grades, then I can't be bothered, to use the word of the teenagers that I work with, then I can't be bothered doing anything. And so then we have a problem. But if I'm recognizing the fact that this young person is fantastic as spoken word, which is a form of poetry, or well done for that, or the fact that they're very good with their hands, or the fact that they're kind, you know, their values, they have values. The minute we recognize that, then it motivates them to do something more. And what I've noticed as well is every single time you are encouraging a young person about what they've done well, it means that they try harder in the area actually that you're not even addressing, the one that they're failing, in quotes, failing in. So I was I was agreeing with John Willis on that. But the second thing I would say is, you know, young people are not adults. They're young. They're changing every day. Hormonal changes all over the place. So a kid is 14 and suddenly they think they're adults. We want them to behave like they know, but they're not adults, they're children, and they're still growing. So we need to be cognizant of the fact that that is happening within them. And really look at them from their point of view, and remember that we need to teach them, which is something that sometimes we forget because we assume that they should know. I mean, now you're 14, you should know how to clean your room. They know, but they don't know. They need to be taught, and and it has to be embedded. So the fact that they're growing is something that may cause them to lose motivation because their mind is elsewhere. You know, you're bothered about your physical body change. You're bothered about the peer group that, you know, that you're keeping. They're now more important. Where it comes to teenagers, peers are more important than adults. So they're dealing with those things, and they're wondering why you're suddenly coming up and wanting them to do this other, you know, what you think is important. And at that point, it isn't important for them. And then the other thing I'd like to say is mental health, because we have seen a lot of change, especially post-pandemic, and a lot of our children had a very sedentary life during the pandemic. The systems were disrupted. There's a lot that happened, and we can't ignore the fact that that could have had an impact on them and on their motivation. And then finally, what I'll say is, why should they be motivated? So a young person will wonder, why should I be motivated? Why is school important? Why is it that I have to go and do this, that, and the other? So the lack of why can cause them to not get motivated as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you really, really nailed it. And I know John Wills is smiling there. Does anything resonate with you from what Susie has said?
Absolutely, and I love that approach. And one of the things I have realized is, especially that question, why should they be motivated? Most of the time, for us as adults, we want them to be motivated for us. It's not for them, and so we may attach our own affirmations, or rather seeking affirmation in what is happening in our children. And one of the things that we need to realize is that what we see wrong with our children, it actually started as a way of coping in their situation. And some of these things, it is mainly like now running away from pain and running away from their fears, because teens and our children will experience grief. Like now, there's a case I was handling some time back, where a child moved from one school to another, and their performance went down, and they could not go. In the process, as we're having a conversation with this child, the child said that he experienced loss, and that is loss of friends, loss of teachers, loss of their environment. And so they needed to cope in this new environment. But you see, the intentions that we have as parents, when you're making some of these decisions, they're informed by what we see as our definition of success. And so if we are not able to break down our definition of success to our children, then as they internalize these things, they will interpret it as loss, and there will be a disconnect. And so in the journey of communicating, it's mainly getting to understand that what we see as misbehavior, it started as a way of coping with an experience or an event in their lives. And that's why you'll hear a child saying, I don't feel like going back to school. And we are like, unajua ni watoto wangapi wamekataa shule. And sometimes we will tell them, you know how many children have not gone to school? And that becomes an issue. And the other example I would want to give is, I also, as you mentioned, working in social justice. I work with juveniles in prisons. And I remember one time, this girl had served her term, and she was released. But one time, as in, she said, I don't want to go home because it is safer here, and I have a family here. And so the question is, what was this young girl talking about? She was talking about connection, and also it's a place where her motivation was enhanced by the community. And so the question is, how is it that in our neighborhoods, a child will not say it's better to be at home or it's better to be in school, and they can say, I'd rather be in this prison because my family is here. Yeah.
Wow, I think that's just a moment to take and breathe in and out, because those are the realities. We don't really get to connect the problem, the issue, the challenge of lack of motivation with the things that you're talking about, with connection. And one of the conversations I have with parents all the time is that our children respond to us better when they feel connected to us. That if we are consistently working on connection, on conversations, on just really being able to come to their level. And connection doesn't mean going to Diani, you know. It just really means the 10 minutes you have with this child. Are you fully present? Are you really listening? Okay, I ask them, are you an askable and approachable adult? Are you that kind of adult who is askable and approachable? Because we put up those masks, and because of our own, again, it's our own way of coping with whatever it is that we are going through. And so even as we continue to have this conversation, I just ask to remind as what John will say, that this is not a parent bashing conversation. It's really about unpacking the whys, so that now we get to a place where you're like, okay, so what do we do? How do we move forward? So I'm hearing a lot of connection, a lot of maybe motivation is built in community. Maybe if we thought together and figured out how can we create spaces where our children feel part of a community, would that somehow contribute to their level of motivation? Susie is talking about the why, and they ask why. Okay, I mean, I went through a season with my son where I had to explain how every subject is connected to his ambitions. Okay, so how is Kiswahili connected to being an aerospace engineer? You know, just and you know what, parents, we have to have those conversations we have to have those conversations with children. We have to help them see the connection between what they are doing now to what it is that they aspire to be. So it becomes easier to have those conversations of focus on, you know, doing your French test, or focus on doing your Kiswahili homework, because it is connected to something. So the why is important. And maybe even here in conversations here, I would just like to hear from the teachers, how do you connect? For example, if you're teaching history, how do you help children connect history to becoming a surgeon? All right. if we are able to find those connections, you know, our children, it settles them down. It settles them down. And it's just the generation that they are in. They are more wise, they ask more, they question, and that's how we are raising them. We also want them to be able to question. So what are some of these connections that you make as teachers, as parents, between subjects? As we continue to talk, please help us. Share with us what conversations you're having with your children, or you would like to have with your children in terms of this subject this is how geography will help you in the future. This is how, you know, because if it's not connected, if they're not connecting it in the present, they become also to motivation. The other thing Susie said is that maybe an unhealthy self-esteem, which then, you know, is probably going to be supported a lot with the way we encourage our children, and encouraging them in one space helps them, you know, flow it out to other spaces. So so what are we doing then with all this information that we have? Then how do we then help parents to begin to cultivate motivation? And before even you say that, I really wanted to emphasize on the point, Susie, you said about them not being mature enough, that sometimes we have expectations on them that are not yet developed. So they need skills in how to rise up to that motivation. So I want us to step back and think about the things we wrote on Menti, you know, thinking through, doing homework on your own, being neat, doing your chores. A lot of us were saying without being asked, okay? There has to be a process before we go to without being asked. There has to be a process there. And a lot of the tasks we are expecting of our children, they are the responsibility of what we call the frontal lobe, okay? The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that is in charge of thinking through and making logical decisions and not being able to be reminded over and over, does not really fully develop until 25 years. I love to throw that at parents because I'm like, how many of you have children over 25 years? All right, so that we are able to step back and say, because the things we are expecting of them, they are not developmentally ready. What kind of environment then do we create for them to be able to learn these things? So maybe we just transition to that then. How do we help parents? What are some of the things that you are doing with the children in your spaces to really create the environment to build motivation? To nurture motivation. Susie?
Yeah, I like that question because the whole concept about it takes a village to raise a child is really real. And as parents or as adults, maybe I should say, we have that responsibility and we have the desire and the responsibility as well to be able to help our children build that community that can guide them. So I think one of the things that I have seen really work is building trust with your, I'll say teenager, because that's really who I deal with, but also I say teenager also because young children who are younger, they very much depend on parent anyway. So you're always around your child and they trust you almost automatically when they're younger. When they're a bit older, they start coming to themselves. And sometimes it can be really, really difficult for them to trust just anybody. And it's really important to build that trust. One of the things when I'm doing my mentorship is I say to parents that when I'm doing those sessions, it's not about what I want and it's not about what the parents want. It's about what the child needs and the tools that they need to have to then thrive in what they want to do. And the reason I don't even specify in terms of you're headed towards this direction or this career or this business is because when I start with you at 14, you might change your mind at 19. But when you change your mind at 19, you have the tools to be able to pivot into whatever you want to become. So one of the ways of building that trust is through questioning. So, and it's not just questioning so that for the sake of it, you question to listen to their point of view, because their point of view is valid. It could be wrong, but it's valid. And you want to be able to ask open-ended questions that, for example, if I come and say, one of the most common ones that we tend to ask is, how was your day? Okay, it was good. What was good about it? This, that, and the other. Tell me what you had for lunch. Pizza, what was in the pizza? It had, pineapple or whatever it is. You need to be able to ask probing questions just to understand their world. Tell me about your friends. This is so and so. Okay, tell me about them. What are they good at? What do you do together? Like, have that conversation with a mindset of hearing their point of view, not dismissing the point of view. Some of the points of view that we hear are very shocking. You're like, whoa, okay, I'm not too sure about that. But it's their point of view at that point. And then when you listen to them, then you're able to, sorry. So you're able to then unpick what it is that they need, and then via the conversation towards a teaching point. If their point of view doesn't align with the values that they should have, then you talk about values without condemning them, and you're saying, this is the value, this is why we have the value, this is our family values, this is society values, what are your values? So it's really about having a conversation, and I'm insisting on that because I am one of those people who, being African and teaching in the West, the first thing you think is, why am I having to deal with this, attitude? You think that way. But then you realize, so an example, today, I'm on duty, I find these kids who are not in lesson, they're 15, they're in year 11, so they're 15, 16. They're not in their maths lesson. So I said to them, you need to go into the lesson. I did that against my Africanness, because my Africanness would have been, first of all, why are you even here? And then I have the conversation about the fact that they're not in the lesson, and I take away the lesson time. Mm. So I postpone the conversation to later on, because I'll still have it, but I want to hear, why were you out there? Why were you not in? So you have that. But what I'm saying is that we need to hear, and we need to have a conversation. And in that conversation, it should not be condemning. It should be about teaching them if they're on the wrong, or affirming them if they're on the right. So I'll stop there so that John Willis can give his, but that's mine: questioning to understand and have a conversation.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. John?
I think that's quite intensive. I think Susie has done a very good job. And the other thing I would say is that as parents, children, they don't experience our intentions. In as much as we would want to make them responsible and view our actions as good intentions, they may never understand our intentions as parents, simply because they're children and we are adults. And I have had parents sometimes say, I did this because I love you, or I did this because I am your parent. I did this because I truly cared about you. And so the child at some point the child was not able to capture the intentions of the parent. And so the question is, what is it that children capture if they will not experience our intentions? One is that children experience our compassion, and they also experience our tone and our body language. Because sometimes our approach can be hostile to their understanding, and sometimes it can be kind, or it can be accommodating. And the other thing I would say is that it's important to grow conversations, and these will take time. And sometimes the pressure is heavy because let's say on one hand, you're working in a capitalistic environment where people are pushing each other and they don't want to listen. All they need results. Then you go home and you're wondering, now this one, how do I help him or her?
Yeah.
So it's good to catch yourself as a parent where frustration is checking in as a result of what you see in your child. And what happens is that at the workplace or in your business, you're moving very fast. And then maybe you're hyper vigilant in your biashara. Sometimes you're thinking, where am I going to get the next thing? Then when you go home, the same energy you take home and the demands are like running a small organization. And so the child tries to capture your attention and they're not able to. I think the other thing I have seen is when children misbehave, and as parents, we take them back to school, sometimes so that children can be accepted. We take the side of the institution and abandon our children simply because we want them to go back to, we want them to be accepted. And the other thing is, I've had this conversation, and I know it has been at the center of our conflict in social justice system, especially the institutions where children will go, they sit for the interviews, and then they are told, you didn't pass, so you can't be accepted in this school. For them, it is not being accepted. It registers as rejection.
Yeah.
And so it will be a source of discouragement for them. And so one of the things that I tell parents is that when you take your child to a school and your son or your daughter has been interviewed, also request the school that you have an interview for the school. So interview the school and ask questions so that by the time you're leaving that space, you can go home and tell your son or your daughter, I don't think that school is a good fit for you because of 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if your child is experiencing rejection from an institution, remember, you're the only safe space for this child. And so creating that environment where your child can receive motivation is very important. And so when they don't understand our intentions, they understand our empathy. So it's good to be empathetic. It's good to be compassionate. And also when you find that sometimes your son or your daughter has done something that you're not, you don't approve of, and you find the way you're dealing with it, you're saying words that cannot amount to a blessing. It's good to catch yourself. Maybe you can call your friend, have a conversation with your friend about your situation. And this should be done away from your son or your daughter. They should not hear you having this conversation because it should be confidential. And this conversation is for you so that you can go face your child when everything is settled. And so it's good to have some of these conversations. And I know there's someone who said that they don't do things we used to do in the past. And I will be honest with us. Like now we were having a conversation the other day at home, reflecting on how we were brought up and where we went to school, primary school. I grew up in the village. And there's one teacher, I forgave that teacher when I was I joined university because the teacher was quite hostile. And GHCR, those who can remember, it was out of 60. If you get anything below 50, he used to beat us properly. And so it took time. And I remember at some point when I was in high school and I was going to the village, I was fearful. I didn't want to meet this Mr. Someone. Let me not say his name. He might be here. So, so all I am saying is that misbehavior in your child is a message that you should heed as a signal to something that is happening deep within. It's as simple as that and as complicated as that. Asante.
Now you think you've simplified it for us, but it's true. I think for the most part, and I know we all work in children's spaces, the real frustration, I mean, the frustrations parents have about lack of motivation for children is real. And, we are here to validate it and say, yes, it's real. This child cannot even just think to do homework. However, how many times we have talked about it, however, the consequences we have given and all that. But again, we are just really circling back to connection. We're circling back to conversations. We're circling back to relationship, which is not easy. I mean, I wish we just had that silver bullet, that quick fix, that how do we train? And of course we can train, and use consequences and all that. But what you're saying and what a lot of people coming to this space, in this platform say is it still circles back to stepping back, maybe discovering that it might take a little bit more than what we think it requires. And again, our children respond to us better when they feel connected to us through those conversations, through empathy. And you know what neuroscientists are telling us, that if you are being empathetic, even as you're interacting with your children, and actually genuinely being empathetic, that is modeled because there are mirror neurons that are being reflected in the child's brain. So empathy is also being cultivated in them without even you saying, let us be empathetic. So there's a lot of, again, work that needs to be done on us as parents so that we're able to create that environment. What I'm also hearing is that environment matters. And I would like to read just a few comments here. I would also like to invite us to ask specific questions in the chat so that we address them as we go, because we want to make this as real and as practical as possible, even as we begin to wind down. Someone asked how long this conversation takes. Usually about 2 hours. So we'll start winding out down from around 9:15 there. The conversation here, Vivian says, oh, my same WhatsApp group, my 14-year-old goes to the extent of asking me whether I trust her. Susie, you just talked about that, conversations about trust. So what do we do here when a child says, you don't trust me? What do we do? Anyone wants to take that?
I think the fact that they don't trust you and they're saying that is a good thing, because a lot of teenagers bottle things up as well sometimes. So if they're saying that, it's for a reason, maybe because part of motivating our young people is also having boundaries, discipline, and insisting on making sure that they're doing the right thing, especially when it comes to fundamental values. So I think based on why the young person is saying that, they might be doing it as a reaction of the fact that you've said no to them doing something that they'd prefer to do over something else. So you then go back to what John Willis was saying earlier, which is, answer the why. So it's not like I don't trust you, but you need to understand and you give your reasons based on the context in which they're asking rather. And I think one of the things that I really like is the fact that when we don't, as adults, because we don't know everything, we are learning every day, including learning young people, and they have a lot as well that we can learn from. And one of the things that there's a mentee of mine who said, I'm bored, I'm finding this boring. Mm-hmm. And, I needed to listen to that and say, okay, why? Why is it? Is it because it's too late? Is it the session is too late? Yes. which he said yes. And I said, okay, is it because you can't see where it is headed to? Yes. And I said, there's the concept of delayed gratification. And then he understood. And then he was fine after that, because as long as we are not feeling attacked or like we are less of parents or anything like that, allowing that child to say, I don't trust you, fine. And then you have that discussion with them.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. And then Helen, you have something to say, John Wills, or I read another one?
I like what Susie said, especially when children raise a concern and we feel attacked. I think it's good to journey and ask ourselves, what is it being attacked in us? Because what you will find is that which you feel attacked in you is an area that you need to address and visit. And sometimes it can actually be sense of insecurity and anxiety, because sometimes children will also ask, do you trust me? Because they can sense anxiety. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I would want to say is that parents, you're doing a lot of work, and quite a number of parents, they don't believe that they're doing a good job.
Right.
But you're doing a good job. The fact that you're here today, this takes courage, actually, for your name to be seen as part of this conversation. It takes a lot of courage. And so parents, you're doing a good job. And so where you find that you're struggling with anxiety, you need to ask yourself, what is it you feel threatened in you as a result of how you're feeling? And most of the time you will realize there's so many voices in our society talking about how to parent, and talking about your own failures as a parent. And sometimes there are utterances on radio where people will say, as a parent, parents have failed, and that's why young people are behaving in a certain way. Forgetting that what children are looking for, especially teenagers, they are looking for mutual respect. And so they are not adults, but they desire to be respected. And so how does that look like? And sometimes when a child comes and says, hey, I think I don't feel respected. And you're wondering, now, who told you that you should be respected in my house? Yeah. I didn't even talk to my parent like that. And so who should respect who here? And I remember, like now, I give my example. There's a time I told my dad, sometime back, I was in such a session. I was much younger. I went and I told my dad, I forgive you. And he laughed. He asked me, oh, how do children forgive their parents? Because he could not understand. But he's a good man. So there's mutual respect, trust, and then genuine connection. Now, for genuine connection, this evening I was in a restaurant, and in this restaurant, there's a parent who walked in with a child, and then another child walked in, and another one walked in. And so these three children, they were doing their homework, but two were seated near the entrance. And so this person who came in with their child first came and requested these two children to join their child, and created room for them. Mm-hmm. And interesting enough, no one could access that space. You could see how secure these children felt. And after their homework, they started having a conversation with this stranger. And with that, they created a community. I would say so. And so the other question I have is, how intentional are we to create communities? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's simply when you go to pick your child from school, say hi to a parent, say hi to another child. And the last thing I would say, for boys, affirm them, because affirmation for them, as someone said, is like oxygen. And so they need affirmation. They need to hear that they have done a good job. They need to hear that they are progressing well. And sometimes, as I mentioned about our workplaces, you can be criticized at work to a point that when you come home, you think that's the language, and you adopt that. So by the time you get home, you criticize everything, even about yourself. And sometimes you will sit back and wonder whether you're a good parent. I just want to assure you you're a great parent. As long as you're seeking knowledge and you're in this forum seeking to understand how to approach your parenting, it takes courage, and this is a good job. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Speaking of community, speaking of, again, circling back to working on ourselves, our self-awareness, what's going on in other spaces and how are we bringing it into our children's space. Helen says, true, kids experience grief. At my son's school, I have seen children transfer and come back after a term because they could not cope in their new school. That happens a lot, and it's just not even about changing schools. They experience grief also when their friends leave. Okay, and my son's best friend left last term, and it's been a whole, I mean, the entire year, I think from April and now, we're still having conversations about how sad it is and how hard it is. And it would be very easy for me to dismiss him. And, see, we talked about that last term, because when he started again this term, because I really thought we had nailed it, because I give him, space to talk, so I was like, now I've done my work. Then this term starts, the new term, then he comes back, he's like, oh my goodness, Mom, it is so, so different. I can't even imagine the world of year 9 without so-and-so. And I was just like, please, let's not go down that road again. But what I know is that even just speaking that, just holding space, as both of us are saying, just listening and allowing them to express, it goes away faster. It goes away faster because we've created space to have those conversations. We don't know how to do with children when they're experiencing loss and all that. But what we really need to do is just hold space without even looking for solutions. I didn't have a solution for him. I tried not to get impatient that we are going down that line again. But I know that it will happen again, because this is someone that he really loved for 8 years. They were in the together, and so I have to honor that. And so again, it's just to ask parents to figure out the why behind this lack of motivation. Perhaps maybe if I hadn't created that space, he would have spiraled, in one way or another, whether it's in his academics or whatever. But just creating that space, having the conversation, not making it too intense, but moving on, to be able to just let them offload. Okay. Sarah says, I insist on them focusing on offering a solution. If, for instance, we are in traffic, what solution would you offer to ease the traffic? Amazing. And please share your tips, share the things that you're doing to cultivate motivation in your children as well, to nurture them. Children need to know they are not alone at every stage. They need to know they are not alone. Agnes says, wow, just learned something new, that part of the brain doesn't mature until they're 25 years old. Yes, ma'am. The things that we want them to do now, that thinking through, focusing on tasks and staying on task, it's not mature until 25, doesn't really mature, the part of the brain that is responsible for that. And we're not cutting slack and letting them go off the hook because of that. We're just coming from a place of understanding. And what I tell parents is, so that instead of coming at them, we're coming alongside them. We are asking, what kind of environment? Okay. Yes, we will give you contacts. Here, there's the last slide has contacts as well, but even as we're having this conversation, John, you can put your contacts there. Susie, you can put your contacts there. There's someone here who has a direct message, says, my son is reading too much for KCPE. I'm wondering if he thinks we will reject him. How do I help him? And I see that a lot. I see kids actually get very intense just before as the exams go, and exams are coming. And in Stowy Camp in December, we asked them to write about their anxieties and worries. And one of the biggest one was, I am so afraid of failing. So the parent here is asking, how do I support? Because you realize parents also are really working hard to reduce the pressure on their children, but the children are just, some of them are just too driven. How do we support in that area? We can start with you, John Wills.
Thank you. I think I would give an example of where I went to school, which was a good school, and and one of the things that that we were told one morning is that if studying is making you dysfunctional, then you're not studying, you're stressing yourself. And I remember there's a student who had come from another school, and he said that he needs to translate so that he can pass his exams. And we found him snoring in the morning. So one of the things I would say is that sometimes what we celebrate, like now, even at our workplaces, some of the things that we celebrate, things that actually make people dysfunctional, like the person who leaves the work late is the person who is rewarded. The person who will not take a break will be celebrated. And so we need to redefine our meaning, especially when it comes to resilience. So the question is, what do we consider resilience? And for children, and this is what I encourage parents, encourage your child to ask for help. And that is the best definition of resilience, that they know where their capacity reaches and what they can't take and what they can take. And so they can come to you and ask for help. And then the other thing is creating an environment of understanding. Let me give you an example of an institution that we work with. And that institution, number one, it's a national school, doing very well. But one of the things they emphasize on is one, making sure that you get enough sleep. Then number two, you have enough time to study between 8 and 3:30. So after that, you go rest, play, make sure that you sweat. And one of the things we tell students is that make sure you sweat every day. And don't sweat because you have eaten a lot. Sweat because you worked out, as in you played soccer and all and such things. And so I want to connect that with something else. One, when you find that your child is overwhelmed by assignments, it's good to have that conversation with the institution, with the school, because this is your child. And all said and done, this child will come back home to you. And sometimes because of our background, we are not sure whether we can question a system somewhere, or even the approach that an institution is taking. Let me give you an example. There's a student who had refused to go to school because there's a teacher who used to give them homework every single day. And so when we went to this school, the student said that when they had an exam, he found himself answering some questions using another subject, content from another subject. And so there was total confusion. And so my question is, if we as parents, we don't like it when we are stressed at work, why should we allow it to happen to our children? And so these are some of the conversations that we need to have. And I like that Susie is here as a teacher, and her approach is from a place of understanding. And so there's some emphasis that we put in our society, especially the conversations where we say, my child must pass, my child must go to university and do a certain course. And so with that, there's a lot of comparison. And so this is what I tell people: whether your child is in a day school or a boarding school, the most important thing is that your child is learning. That's the most important thing. And so the question is, how do you know that your child is learning? One of the things I would encourage parents to do is to have conversations with educationists. Like now, reach out to Susie and you can ask her, how do I know that my child is progressing in their studies? Because it's not just about the marks they get by the end of the term. It's not just about that certificate that they're getting. It's about also understanding, and are they growing as students? And one last thing I would say is that our children, they are not our property. They are their own beings, and they are their own beings, and it's a statement of trust for us to nurture them as adults and also as parents, because it's not just about your own child. There's another child in your neighborhood who needs your support and affirmation. So affirmation, 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 affirmation. And sometimes when your child asks you, you don't trust me, sometimes it's because your anxiety levels are quite high and they need to come a bit low so that you can connect. Asante sana.
Here, and Lillian says, you I trust, it's others out there that I don't trust. So I guess quite a comeback. Susie, here is a question. How do we motivate the kids without causing them to feel overconfident? That is, when we tell them, well done, good job, etc., how far should we go to avoid it being too much?
Wow. Okay. I think for me, I always start with the fact that you're telling them, well done. So already that's a good thing. Whether you're overdoing it depends on whether or not that specific young person is being challenged in other ways. Because one of the ways to motivate children who are very good, in quotes, good, like they're good with everything, is the fact that you're always saying, well done. But the thing that I found sometimes is that we need to create a controlled discomfort. So which means if you're really good at one thing, what else can you do so that you can challenge yourself, because I don't want to say that stop saying well done. Mm-hmm. But what I want to say is say well done and then start making it well done for other things other than the normal things. So if the child is really tidy, so let them show somebody else how to be tidy and then say well done. So I think that a young person feeling, in Kiswahili tunasema kugrow, kichwa ina grow, what do you call it, like becoming too,
yes.
becoming too proud. Yeah. So to avoid that you those are the kinds of I think it's a values thing. Let me put it that way. It's a values thing as opposed to the fact that you're saying well done. So if pride is a value we don't want, so humility is a value that we want. So there's that value that you teach, that despite being told well done a lot, there's at some point you're not the only one who's really good at something, and so teaching that humility is key. But at the same time, expose your child to leadership. Actually, let them be a leader, let them step out into a challenge that is controlled so that they can experience failure, because then they learn from that failure, or they experience growth because they learn from it. That's how I would say to do.
All right. Yeah. So expose them to other opportunities that they will experience some pressure. And I hear what Rachel is saying. I remember I used to, so for me, it's in also how the words that you use. That's where, and I know you have conversations about growth mindset and fixed mindset, is that sometimes we have a fixed mindset in how we praise our children. And so we focus on the end results. And so when my son was, I kept telling my son, you're a genius. I kept telling him he was a genius. And he used to do well. But when he got to year 4, he actually wasn't doing very well. So I was like, but you need to study. He said, I don't need to study. I'm a genius. And he said it with so much cockiness. I was like, what am I raising, And then, and he was in year 4, at least now he's in year 9, and we've come a long way. And when I have come across conversations around growth mindset, I completely changed the words that I was using. And now it's about process. So I've dropped those, you're a genius. It's like telling someone you're tall. So now, it's something you give, when you're giving them motivation, give them something they can control, talk about process, talk about effort, talk about, for you to get here, you actually need to repeat this. You have to practice, all right? We're not looking for perfection. And so when we began to talk about process-oriented conversations, we are no longer talking about geniuses. So for you who is here and you're calling your child a genius and smart and clever, go and read a little bit more about growth mindset, and even just the words that you need to use, so that, yeah, they don't get that big head that, you know, we are talking about, but they begin to now see that it actually takes effort to get there. John Wills?
That's quite something, and I like what Susie said about Kichwa Kubwa, because you realize that even for us as adults at our workplace, that person you call proud at the workplace, pride actually originates from trying to. It's a statement of seeking approval and importance. So it's where you have reached your end, and you know that this one is falling, and so the best way to do it is to manage people by presenting what you are not. And sometimes what we do, like now when you're talking to our children, like you have said, the words of affirmation that we use what we hear motivational speakers using out there. And some of those things are not real. So you will come home and tell your child something, and you will get disappointed. And that is where sometimes I also have my own conflict when it comes to motivational speakers pushing and telling people that you need to have positive thinking. And so imagine your child is behaving badly and someone tells you need to think positive. So the question is, where do you start now processing what your child is doing, how you're feeling as a parent, and how you approach that issue? Because when a child starts misbehaving, what happens in a parent is that compassion is threatened, because you're feeling, do I really love this child enough? And now, as a result of that, because you're having your own fears, the child's capacity to interpret your compassion is joy. So the child now starts running away because they don't know how you're going to deal with this situation. And in the process, you realize that two of you, the parent and the child, you're experiencing grief, and you're angry, and your child is angry. And if you journey back, you will realize that it's only that there is no compassion. And it's not just compassion from the parent, even from the child in that environment. Because when you find that your child is not happy, it affects you as a parent. Now, in that situation, you will find that a parent starts feeling anxious. And why are they feeling anxious? Because they don't understand how to help this child. And as someone has posted here, that parenting should have come with a manual. You go out there and every parent is presenting the good side of their children. Exactly. And they're saying, oh, my son has done this. Oh, my daughter has done this. And now you're seated there wondering, oh my God, what am I doing in this world? And in that process, you get anxious. And when you're anxious, it becomes very hard for you to make decisions. And some of the decisions that you will make as a parent are decisions to actually satisfy the voices of those parents who said what they are doing with their children. And so you are not even parenting your child, you are meeting someone else's marking scheme. And so it disconnects you from your child because you're trying to satisfy what someone else said about you and how bad you are as a parent. And so when you're making those decisions, then it conflicts a lot in your family, because you feel like you have lost control, and then your child feels like they have lost control. And with that, you're not able to connect. And as a result, you find that there is anger in the family because no one knows how to approach any issue. And sometimes you will find children will change their language. like there's one time I remember we had an issue with my mom, and I told her, for me, I was in a national school. I told her I'm not going back to school, and so I walked out, and she asked me,
Oh no.
this work, and so I boarded this matatu, and as I was asking people for to pay, guess who was seated at the back? It was my mom. Have you ever felt like you will alight when this thing is moving, because it was going to be drama? And so, and I remember my mom calling a few people to talk to me. And when these people came, one came to pray for me, the other one came and said, you need to be beaten. And another one said, you need to be taken back to school. Close. I should not come back. We said, no, you should stay there. So you find that that sometimes as parents, there's so much thing to remember is be open to learning. And as long as you're open to learning and connecting with other parents, you are not a failure no matter what people say. Thank you.
I am experiencing quite spotty network here, but I hope you can hear me. So I lost you a little bit as you were having that conversation, but I heard someone was suggesting you be beaten, another one you be prayed for. Yeah, I think this conversation is still just going back to where are you at as a parent? How are you managing your own anxiety, if there is anxiety? Because whatever is here, and that's what question that we usually ask is, what is in your cup? Because what is in your cup is what will be triggered when our children misbehave or lack motivation. Richard is asking where, I'm sorry, I may not be able to go through every question. I'm trying to pick the ones that can sort of summarize everything we are saying, because I can also see that our time is also time is not on our side. Richard is asking, where does this unhealthy self-esteem come from? Susie talked about it.
I think part of that is the world we live in now. So social media is a major factor which could lead to that, because they, our young people are born with that. So they think that it's perfect, that these people are perfect, whatever they see, the life is perfect. So it could come from social media, especially when misused. I'm not one person who says social media is bad. I think it's a time waster, but or it can be a time waster. But I think it's not bad. It depends on what you're doing in there and how long for. So there's a conversation around that. But in terms of low self-esteem, that idea of perfectionism could be one. The other one is just expectations that are unrealistic, because if I'm not a grade 9 student, or what was like an A student, then but why are you forcing me to want to become that person when I'm not? And like you said earlier, Dr. Carol, progress. So in UK, we measure progress as well as attainment. So attainment is the raw grade, and progress is the progress you made from whatever stage to whatever stage. And I think CBC is introducing something similar. And yes, the systems are flawed in education, but I always say, if you have unrealistic expectations of your child, it can cause them to feel that they're not good enough. Or the other thing is always comparing them to somebody else. Don't do that, because if you do, you're saying that they are not good enough and they were not created to be themselves, but yet we know they are unique human beings by themselves, even when they're twins or, you know, triplets. And the final thing I'd say is a major factor in terms of low self-esteem is the lack of that affirmation about the things that they're good at. Even looks. I have a mentee that I had a while back. The young person was really uncomfortable with how they looked. And, you know, so I'd just start by saying, by the way, your hair is really good, which was true. She could lay these edges, is a girl in my school, and she could lay these edges. I couldn't do it, but she was good at it. And so you start doing those things and making sure that you're affirming, but not just you as a parent. Sometimes they say, oh, but you're going to say that because you're my mom and dad. But the Sunday school teacher, the teacher in school, the person in the mosque or wherever it is, that those people, the community can help in that way. And then finally, there's a book that I read a while back called Grit, Grit, by Angela Duckworth. And it's about resilience, but it's amazing. It's really, really good for young people to read such books, to see the explanation of somebody who's a social scientist, really, who speaks very simply about some of those things. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So let's wrap up now because of time, and there's so many questions here, and this is what happens in these conversations. We never really get to cover everything. Miss Ashley Kioko, you've raised your hand. I would like to hear from you as Susie and John Wills begin to gather your concluding thoughts. The name of the book is Grit by Angela Duckworth, right? Yeah, you can type it in. All right, Miss Ashley? Was that intentional when you raised your hand, Miss Ashley? All right. Well, if you're able to talk, just unmute. Let's have concluding thoughts so that we see if we will have part 2 of this conversation another time. But thank you so much. I mean, this conversation just took another direction. And for me, I'm excited that we're still here. We're still connecting and asking questions and interacting as well. John Wills, concluding thoughts? You're muted.
Sorry about that. I would say that successful parenting is not the absence of threat, but the presence of compassion.
You've really insisted and emphasized on compassion, and I love that. Yeah, so it's not the absence of
Thank you.
threats.
It's not threat, but presence of compassion.
Presence of compassion. All right, wonderful. What happens to the unanswered questions, please? Feel free. Okay, Agnes, I know that you have questions there. Two raised hands. So let's hear from Agnes.
Hi everyone. No, Carol, I'm conscious of the time, really, of the time. So I just wondered whether some of the questions that are not answered now can be maybe answered in an email form or something like that. I just wanted to know how you do it. If there are so many unanswered questions, how do you give the feedback, considering that we are really, really time bad?
What I do is I give our contacts so that now we can have further conversations, because it may not be possible to consolidate the questions here. But if you have our contacts, then we can continue to have that conversation. And I want to just to give the contacts here while I don't know if I'll be able to access my PowerPoint. When everything went down, I can't access it, but may I request that Susie and John Wills, you put your contacts, you place your contacts there, as you also tell us what you do. Susie, concluding I mean, as you also tell us any upcoming programs you may have and all that, and John Wills, you can do that as well. But Susie, concluding remarks?
Yeah, my concluding remarks are young people should be taught continually. And there are many teachers out here, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a teacher, a physical school teacher, whether it's somebody else that you trust. We need to remember that we continually have to teach and embed and be consistent about that. I think that this is a conversation that can't be concluded in a session, because it's an ongoing, literally an ongoing thing. So if I start with my children from year 7, they leave at year 13. So that's what, 6-7 years of a journey. So I would say, you know, it's something we need to keep doing. We are here. That's why we are mentors. That's why we are teachers. That's why we are here, even in this forum, to just keep encouraging each other. The strategies that we are discussing or have discussed are few, and there are many more. But we just need to remember consistency, keep it going, ask for help. We're here.
And
yes.
these are the contacts here that you can use if you would like to reach out to Susie, and if you'd like to reach out to John Wills. John Wills, do you have any programs you would like to invite to talk to us about?
We have Brave Hearts leadership program, and what you do is work with institutions targeting teenagers in high schools, and as well as working with fathers, because the ultimate for me is if we can have as many fathers mentor their own sons, and not necessarily them bringing their sons to us for mentorship. For me, that's the definition of success. And so if we can have as many men doing it for their sons, that would be good. And very soon we'll be having a mentors training, and we'll share with you the details on that. Thank you.
All right, and so they can reach out to these social media pages and this number to be able to get that information. Susie, what do you have for us?
I have the Leading Teenager mentorship program that I do. So if you contact me, then we can discuss that. I'm also looking at doing sessions when the children in Kenya and the ones who are even here are on half term, and in Kenya long holidays. So I will share the information on my social media network. And yes, it's going to be really exciting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Susie and John Wills. Many unanswered questions, but also a lot of insights and a lot of nuggets that you have given us, both of you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for agreeing to be part of this conversation. Please, all of you, keep it here as we continue to have these conversations. These are our contacts. And very, very quickly, just to let you know what it is that is coming up for us is a Stawi camp for only class 8 leavers. So it's class 8 edition, and we are going out. They've been like, we don't want to come and go home. So we're taking 3 days away, actually 4 days away, 3 nights, to Havila Resort. And there is, I don't know if the link is there. If you're interested, just put in click on the link that will be provided, or reach out to us. If there is no link, I can't be able to see right now, but this is what we have. And it's still a Stawi camp, but only specially for class 8. So if you want to gift your class 8 or a class 8 leaver that you know, please reach out to us, and those are the dates. And just, I think the thing that we are really talking about here is motivation issue, motivation, underlying motivation. What we see is the 10%, okay? All the things that we are talking about is the 10%, but underlying that is the 90%, which we've really been talking about. that there's those big feelings of discouragement and frustration. There are those thoughts of I'm not good enough, self-defeating beliefs that I can never make it. Those are the things that we need to unpack, even as we are helping and supporting our children to nurture motivation in them. What are some its past experiences? I have failed before. It's the environment we are providing, and that is where we are talking about affirmation, encouragement. We're talking about our own anxieties that we are bringing into this space. And so to encourage you that for the most part, when we see motivation, we think it's the shark and we need to fight the shark. Our invitation here is let us understand the needs of the goldfish, because what is really happening is that there's a goldfish there that has needs that need to be met. And if we are able to figure out what those needs are from the conversations that we have had, and we continue with these conversations going forward, now that you have our contacts, then we will be able to help and support our children moving forward. So Jesusa. Okay, here's what we will do. It's already 9:30. So for those who need to leave, feel free to leave. We're going to stay on for another 6 minutes. We will log off at 9:40. So if you need to stay on, if you need to leave, that's fine. It's officially done, but then you can stay on and ask these questions. Then we can log out at 9:50, if that is okay with you, Susie and John Wills. So, Jesusa?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Maleo Charles Jesus, as you introduced me. I am from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. I'm very happy to be here. This is very informative discussion. And I have a request. I would love to connect each other with you. This is the second discussion. I could say like I'm enjoying and I'm learning as a psychologist. Thank you so much, you guys. My request, yes, my request, as I said, I would love to connect with you guys so we can help the community.
Okay, karibu sana Jesusa. We are always happy to create communities where we can support one another. So, and you have our contacts, please go ahead and reach out to us and we see how we can collaborate. Please get information there about the 3 days TAWI camp and conversations around Brave Hearts and the leading teenager. You can continue with Susie and John Wills. All right. We will send this link once we have the recording. Once we have a link, I don't know how it will look like because there was we were off a little bit, but we'll figure out how this will go. Thank you, Alista. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your feedback. We appreciate your being here. Our contacts, I think, can be shared again. Someone is asking for a contact. Someone can be muted, kindly. Right. Okay, it doesn't seem really like there is any more questions, so you could allow us. Again, Miss Ashley Kioko, I don't know if you really...
I had admitted. I had admitted, but I don't think you had.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for the informative session. It's been really informative, especially for me. I'm a degree graduate, psychology degree graduate. So it's been very informative and definitely would love to join again.
Thank you very much for your feedback. It always makes a difference. All right. Feel free to turn on your videos and say goodbye as we log out of this session. Karibu sana. Thank you again for your feedback. Appreciate it. Thank you, Susie. And thank you, John.
Thank you, the team. That was amazing.
Sorry?
I say thank you so much. The team, that was amazing.
Karibu.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Allow me to end the session.